deep dive into A/B testing and kind of what it is. So what is A/B testing? A/B testing, also sometimes known as a split test, helps marketers observe how one version of a piece of marketing content performs alongside another. So as marketers, when we're writing, email copy or designing call to action buttons, it can be really tempting for us to use our intuition to predict what will help people engage and perform, and what content will perform better. But basing these marketing decisions off of a feeling can really be detrimental to results. So rather relying on a feeling and making assumptions, it's really best to use an A/B test. So at a high level, A/B testing, you need to create two different versions of one piece of content with a change to a single variable. You then must show these two versions of an A/B test to similarly sized audience, analyze which performs better over a specific period of time. And then once you've given that, a good chunk amount of time, and we'll get into that, you're able to conclude your results and take action on those results. Now, it sounds easy enough, but there are actually a lot of about 7 best practices that you should follow when setting up an A/B test. So the first one is pick one variable to test. Excuse me. So as you begin to optimize your web pages or your emails, you must find that you're going to find that there are a number of variables that you want to test. However, to evaluate how effective changes, you'll really want to isolate one independent variable and measure its performance to isolate that. So to pick one variable, you must look at the various elements in your marketing resources, find alternatives for design, wording, and layout. Other elements, subject lines, sender names, you can send different emails from different names, see how those perform against each other. But one thing to keep in mind is that even the simplest change, like a different design layout in an email, or even the word on a call to action button, really can drive big performance and big improvements. Our second best practice is to identify your goal. So choose one primary metric to focus on. In dynamics marketing, it is either, in dynamics marketing, it's either the ones who have the most open or the most click that will be deemed the winner. Eventually, you'll be able to measure this based on a goal and a conversion, but that will be coming out in later Microsoft releases. The third best practice is to create your control and your challenger. So you build out your version A, which is your controller in your marketing content, and then your version B, which is your challenger. Version A and version B must be different by one single independent variable to really have those best A/B testing results. Sorry, I lost my mouse. There we go. And number 4 is sample size. So typically an email best performs if it's sent to at least 1,000 people each. So in dynamics marketing, for example, if a customer is sending an email to 1,000 people, 10% will get version A, the other 10% will get version B, and then the winner will receive 80%. The really great thing about dynamics marketing is it really does it a lot easily and automatically if you follow just a couple few steps, and I assume we'll bring you guys through that as well. Our 5th best practice is make sure you're really only wanting one test at a time on any campaign. So testing more than one variable for a single campaign can really lead to inconclusive results. So if you desire to test more than one, it is best practice to run multiple single variable tests to really get your best results, and it's easier to track. So for example, if you really wanted to test how a subject line performed in an email and a CTA button, and you test those all at once, how can you really get that? How can you really get the best results? Because they're being tested at the same time. So you're not really sure what's going to be driving that key factor. And number 6, please ensure to give your test enough time. So make sure that your test runs for about 24 hours. And that's kind of a general rule of thumb. But that 24-hour really just depends on how big your marketing list where people are located and the type of content you're testing. So for example, if you're sending out a newsletter to your client list and you know that your clients are all mostly located in a single province or state, giving a time of about 24 hours makes sense. You know, they're going to receive that email at 8 a.m. and there's odds they're either going to interact with it right away or kind of ignore it. So that 24-hour testing period for something like a newsletter really makes sense. But you know, if you're testing something like an email in a nurture campaign, you're really going to want to kind of spread that out over maybe a testing period of 7 days or even 14 days. It really just depends how long your nurture campaign is. And then finally, finally but not least is to take action on your results. So if one variation is statistically better than the other, you have a clear winner, which is great. And Dynamics will automatically send that winning email to the rest of your segment. So for example, if you've conducted an A/B test in your email marketing and have repeatedly found that using numbers in your subject line really engage better clicks or your audience being able just to really interact with it, then great. You're going to obviously take that information and use, you know, metrics in your subject line. However, if the variation is no variation is statistically better, you've just learned that what you tested really doesn't impact results. So you can mark that as inconclusive or really just stick to the original variation, or take those failures, use them as results, and then you know not to use those going forward. A couple of things to remember is when you replace version A with version B in Dynamics 365, version A is permanently deleted and it's something that you can't undo. So that's just one thing to kind of remember. And if version B is the winner, you must enable version B inside of the winning email for future use. And Isim will bring you through that when she sets everything up and goes through those analytics.
Great. I'm going to walk you through the 2 phases of building out an A/B test, starting with building the marketing email and then followed by building out and adding email to a customer journey. After we've built everything and we're ready to deploy, I will then briefly go over how to access and utilize your insights. So let's get started. We'll start by wanting to navigate to your Dynamics marketing dashboard, and then under marketing execution, you will find marketing emails. So we can click here. Here's a list of all of our active emails. When building out a marketing email, you can either select from an existing marketing email. Today, let's build one from scratch. So we'll click on New. And this window pops up with the template. This gives you options to select from a template, previously built or system, obviously template, or we can skip and start a blank one. Let's use this template that I created for the purposes of today. Wonderful. As you can see, I already have the content preloaded. Let's begin by naming our email. This name is for internal purposes, and only you and your team will be able to see it. So it's a good idea to name it something that makes it accessible and something that your team will remember. So we'll go over here, press this down chevron, and here is where you can name it. So let's delete this template name, and let's call it our A/B testing webinar email. Great. So now it's named that. Let's change this to a lowercase b. A/B testing webinar email. That way my team and I can find this whenever we need it. Here you can also see the status. Right now it's in draft, but before being able to use this email, it will have to go live. This is something we'll touch on in a little bit. Let's make this email A/B test enabled. To do this, we'll click over here on Add an A/B test. As expected, a window pops up, and this is asking what you would like to A/B test. The default is subject, as in your subject line, but you can also test your from name, your email body, or the full content of the email. Today, let's work with subject. We can name our subject, but today subject test 1 is great, works great for our purposes, and let's add. Perfect. Now we have a new menu on the left side. This menu lets you toggle between version A and version B. By default, right now, they're the same, but let's change version B to something different. Okay, let's say we're inviting you to our grand opening. Wonderful. It's a great reminder to create your subject lines with the test in mind. Ask yourself, what exactly do I want to test? In this case, I'm testing, does an emoji in my subject line entice somebody to open the email, or would a personal invitation in the subject line entice to open a little bit more? So you can test really anything. I would just recommend, as Carrie mentioned, make sure they're different enough so that your subject line is actually testing something. Great. By the way, you can always tell which version is A and which version is B by this little letter right here. So as you can see, we're looking at version B. The email is the same, but the subject is different, version A. Because we're testing the subject line, this little letter is showing up next to the subject line. But let's say we were testing this banner image and we had a version A and version B, then the little letter would pop up just right here next to what we're testing. Great. Now that we have our test created, we'll save this email. And let's check for errors, which is a good rule of thumb. Whenever you're creating emails, we want to make sure the system doesn't see any errors. Come back with 2 notifications. One, that was already there. There's an update coming soon. But second, no errors were found. Wonderful. Now we can go live with our email. As I said earlier, you have to go live with your email. If your email is not live, you will be unable to add it to the customer journey in our next step. So we're going live. Our status region is going live currently. And let's wait a little bit, a beat, and we're live. Great. Now we can move on to the next stage. The next stage would be to create the customer journey. So we're going to navigate back to the left panel under Marketing Execution, and go to Customer Journeys. Again, just like in customer emails, we have the option to select from an existing customer journey, or we can create a new one. Let's create a new one. And this time, instead of using a template, let's skip and start with a blank canvas. Once we have our blank canvas, we can start again by naming our journey. We'll go over here. Let's name it A/B Testing Grand Opening Journey 1. Perfect. And we have a few more details. So again, we can see that the status region is in draft. Our start time, date, and time. So this will indicate when the journey begins. So if you have multiple tiles within your journey, this will only indicate when that first tile will kick off, not the remaining tiles. And then we're going to keep it to recurring. No, that's fine. Perfect. Now coming back to our blank canvas, let's set our audience. By clicking set audience, we have a new menu again. So you can see here that you have a few different options to choose from, either segment, updated contact info, or all the people that submitted a specific form. So let's go segment, and we'll choose the segment that I have set up for today's purposes. And in here, okay, it's selected. Let's go back in here for a second so I can see the details of the segment that I chose. Earlier, Carrie mentioned that it's best to test on 1,000 contacts or more. Because today's just a test, my contact count is only 8, but just keep that in mind that you should have more than 1,000. Everything else seems good. Great. Now we can select our email. So we'll go to the first tile, this plus sign here, and you can select any of the following actions. Our action is to send an email. Quite simple. Let's find the email that we just created. Okay, what did we call it? This is important. called it A/B testing webinar email. Great. So our webinar email is here. We can make sure it's the right one. Yep, this is the exact one that I created just now. Perfect. So next we'll want to enable, a very important step is to actually enable the A/B test right here. Without enabling, here, the customer journey will only send version A to everyone as if version B did not even exist. We can enable it here, and then we'll see some of these features pop up. These features only apply to this specific email and this specific tile. So if you were to set a schedule or if you were to set an expiration, that only applies to the expiration would only apply to the email, not the entire customer journey. But what we're really interested in is this A/B testing. So we'll go here, and from here, let's choose what we want to test. We're going to test our subject line. That's the only A/B test that we created back when we were in the marketing email. So we're going to test our subject line. What's our distribution? So this talks about who is getting what. So I've toggled it up to 10%. This only means that 10% of my list of 1,000 plus, we know it's only 8, 10% of my list is going to receive version A, and 10% of my list is going to receive version B. And once a winner is determined, the winner is going to be sent to the remaining 80% of my list. We want to decide what our winning metric is. So you can choose from open rate or click-through rate. Open rate is the amount of time, the rate at which your email was opened in an inbox, whereas click-through rate refers to the amount of times a link within the email was clicked. Because we didn't set up any links in our marketing email, we're going to stick to open rate, and let's take this test duration up to 24 hours. And just in case our results are inconclusive, let's send out version A. We're happy with that. Perfect. Next area I want to focus on is our general tab over here. So as you can see here, we're digging a little bit deeper into what we already saw when we clicked up here. You're able to change the name. You can change the start date and the end date of your entire journey. Now we're talking about the entire journey, not just the marketing email. And anything important to you here. Once we are happy with all this information, we're going to save. Let's check for errors once again. Perfect. Let's see what the notification says. Your customer journey passed the error check. Great. No errors. We can now go live with our customer journey. Publishing, again, we can see here, okay, my status reason is going live. If we wait just a beat more, it'll change to status reason live. Wonderful. Okay, so the next step that we want to talk to, we've been able to create the marketing email. We were able to add the marketing email to our customer journey, but let's pretend we've fast forwarded 24 hours. We've seen our testing duration expire. Now we're going to look a little bit into the insights of how we can read our insights and how we can read what worked well and what didn't. Let's go into a journey that I ran yesterday. As you can see here in your journey milestones, I created it yesterday, I published it yesterday, and then it was delayed by 15 minutes, but it started as expected. In our area, this is a little bit different than what we were just looking at because it'll show us, okay, 15 emails were processed, which is 100% of my list that I ran yesterday. You can click here and dig a little bit deeper into the insights, but I'm gonna there's 2 spaces to access this from, and we're gonna dig a little bit deeper into something else, and then we'll revisit this shortly. First, let's go into the Insights tab. As we know, 15 were processed. But when we dig into it a little bit deeper, we can see that only 13 were delivered and 2 were blocked. In this overview, you can also go into email responses over time and page interactions if you did have clicks or links within your email. But I want to know why these 2 emails were blocked. So let's go over to the incomplete journey section, where we'll find a list of potential reasons of why an email could have been blocked. And right away, we can see that one of the reasons is contact has do not email set. And one of my contacts had that, Carrie. She had do not email set on her contact record. So that's why the email did not get delivered to her. And then another reason it wasn't delivered to another recipient was it was a duplicate recipient address. Something great that Dynamics 365 Marketing does is it evaluates your segment. So the segment we added when we were back in our customer journey, it evaluates the segment and makes sure that if there are multiple duplicate contacts in your segment, it will only send that email once. This is very important as marketers, we know, and as consumers, we know that it's annoying to receive the same email multiple times. It really increases the odds of unsubscribes or just deleting the content in general. So it's really great that marketing has this built-in feature where it'll stop. So this contact, which happens to be me, I only received this email once. Perfect. The next section of insights that I want to dig a little bit deeper into, as we saw, we can see this here, but we're going to go over to our marketing email. And then we're going to go into the one that ran, that was part of that customer journey. And we can see the same view, but from a different angle. So over here, this Insights tab, Overview, Delivery, Links, Interactions, Open Times. These are always accessible no matter what marketing email you've created and you've run. What is unique about this one is the A/B testing feature. So just a quick overview. Here we can see total delivered with 3 emails that were totally delivered. 10 were unique opens, so 10 individual people opened the email. 53 opens in general, so obviously those 10 people opened the email more than once, and so on and so forth. We can go through and see all this great insight and great information. This is the same information we saw over on our customer journey. But what I'm really interested in is our A/B testing section. In here, we're able to see the results of our A/B test specifically. So I can see 10% received A. This is the 10%. So it ended up going to 2 people. And 10%, I had an odd number. So the version B went to 1 person. And from our results, actually, Dynamics Marketing determined that our results were inconclusive. And so I had selected previously that version A will be sent out in the case of inconclusive results. And that's what ended up happening. Our test results were inconclusive. So everybody, the remaining 80% received version A. We can dig a little bit deeper. Okay, 2 were sent, 2 were delivered, so 100%, but only 50% was open. So somebody within my test group actually just deleted the email. And in this one, 100% was open. So 1 to 1, we both had 1 unique open, and that's what made my test results inconclusive. What's really interesting is you can dig a little deeper. So let's check who received my version A, or who the version A was sent to, what it was delivered to, and then we can do the same on the version B section. So once the test is actually complete, we're able to see who were our test subjects and who ended up receiving each version. One last thing that Carrie mentioned very quickly was in the case of version B winning, which wasn't the case here, but in the case that version B won, we really want to take action on these results. So unless you If you don't take action, then in the future, version A will continue to be the winning or the dominant, the control subject. But we know that version B won, so we want to take action. And what you do is you'll navigate here. Once it's finished, once the test is finished, you can dig a little deeper, and then right here, replace with version B. So you would just click that, and that's when Carrie mentioned that version A is deleted. So we'll no longer see more ways to shop up here. We'll only see version B. This is your exclusive invitation in the case that version B won.